Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Kadena Army. Welcome back to Kadena Campfire. This is episode 21 and featuring the one and only Will Martino. My name is Tyler Benster. I'm the tech adoption lead here at Kadena Eco, and we have a great session planned for you here today. Without further ado, I'm going to bring Will up onto the stream. Hey, Will, how you doing?
Good. How are you, Tyler?
Pretty
Hello, everyone.
well. Yeah, we'll give some community shout outs here. Barbaric Puma, congrats on being the first person in the stream waiting room. We got Kobe Lazar in the house of Eucalyptus, amazing. Hi, Wave Rider, great showing from the ecosystem. So love how many folks we have already on the stream interacting. We try and make these as interactive as possible. This is really for a session for the community to come together and have a chance to interact with Kadena team, grantees, ecosystem, and to talk about whatever's on your mind. Any questions that you have, any comments, anything you want to hear more about, we're here for you and to chat and engage. So please leave comments, questions in the chat. We'll try and get to as many as possible. And we'd love to help this stream reach as many folks as possible and maybe even introduce one or two new people to Kadena. So without further ado, we have a few updates. I guess first I should say, it almost goes without saying with an introduction for Will, but for anyone newer to the Kadena community, Will is a co-founder of Kadena and someone that has been integral in terms of building out the tech stack and also some of the fascinating ideas behind the graph that is Chainweb itself. And so all sorts of interesting stuff in Will's head. He's a expert across a number of topics, and so you can ask him things about chaos or math or all sorts of good stuff, and hope we'll have a great conversation here. But in the meantime, have a couple quick updates that we want to get to. Then we'll get to the live Q&A portion of this. We have some questions that were asked from Discord as well. So first of all, very exciting, the Kadena Q2 newsletter is now out. And so let me try and bring that up on the screen. Look at that. Q2 newsletter up on the Medium blog post. And so you should definitely check that out. It gives some updates around the strategy with JavaScript and bringing Pack to Web 2. This amazing increase in on-chain activity with Pack modules over time, increasing dramatically over the past some time. The number of unique keys increasing. We have some interesting bridges in terms of partnerships and community that are highlighted, as well as tech updates and developments. So a lot of great new content with Marmalade v2. I know that's been very exciting for the community and developers. So lots of great updates there. Also, a second update on harnessing formal verification for smart contracts. Another Medium post here that will be particularly interesting to developers. But I think for anyone that has been on the stream, you've heard a little bit about formal verification in the Pact. So another succinct introduction here. For formal verification is a really killer technology that underlies a lot of the code that is deployed on Kadena's blockchain. And so understanding this is useful as well for people that are trying to evangelize and help spread the word about Kadena to other developers, to other people in the crypto community. Being able to talk about formal verification is a killer, unique differentiator for Kadena as a whole. So a great blog post with a lot of technical detail in there too, with a more lay summary at the beginning. And then just two other quick updates. This one we've been asked about before, so very excited to share that Link's wallet is now a Kadena grantee. So we've had folks asking about Links on the live stream a few times over the past month or two. And so further evidence that we really do listen and care about what community thinks and says. And so please keep the suggestions and ideas coming. It really helps direct our efforts so that we can have the collective intelligence of the hive mind, not just of what's in our own heads. And finally, Randy has a nice update here that Kadena will be attending ETHCC in Paris. So that'll be a really, really cool conference. Nothing like a French capybara to get things going. But yeah, it's going to be a really cool sticker opportunity and chance to meet the team and chat with folks. So if you are in Paris or need an excuse to go visit Paris in the summer, who does? But if you need one, ECC and Kadena is a great combination that should get you over to France. So with that basically sums up the updates that I have. But maybe I'll turn the floor over to Will here for just a moment, in case there's anything on your mind, Will, that you'd like to share at the kickoff here.
No, outside of, everyone has commented that I used to be in a cave. I've actually renovated my apartment and am now basically in a cave. So if you see me looking like, a bit of a vampire, it's because I actually don't have a window anymore. Yeah. So no, we moved last week. So the bags under my eyes are from all of that. But no, it's great to be on and it's great to chat with everybody. I'm looking forward to getting into the questions.
Right on. Well, congrats on the move. And I know that my mornings are always invigorated by these campfires. And so I expect that we will put a new chip in your step, chipper step. Mixed idioms are a specialty of mine. But in any case, great to have you on. And we have obviously a huge number of people that are chiming in with their hellos and what's ups and all sorts of check-ins. So really love to see community here. That's absolutely amazing. And feel free to ask questions in the chat and we'll get to as many as we can. But we do first have a few questions that were asked on Discord that we will jump right into. The first one from Need Beef, very memorable name there. Why does Kadena have a 30-second block time? What advantages or disadvantages does that give?
So that one was my pick, and it was done on research we did a number of years ago. There's no, you can bring, as you bring down block time, the chance of having an orphan goes up. And that's 30 seconds was what we thought we could achieve with the gossip protocol that we have for gossiping around new blocks. At that point, if we were to say upgrade our gossip protocol, which I know is on the roadmap somewhere, and we've been talking about it for a while, then we'd actually be able to bring that down probably to 10 seconds or 5 seconds maybe. But this is a more longer term thing because 30-second block time, it works for the setup that we have now. I think when we go to more chains, we're probably going to end up going to multiple. My dog is now throwing a fit. Sorry, you hear that in the background. When we go to more chains, we're going to go to more multi-server architecture. When that happens, we don't. Part of it is that you want to be able to validate blocks quickly, and by going to multiple servers, you'll be able to actually validate, things it scales horizontally, which is one of the promises of Chainweb. So it's never going to catch stews. I'm only going to maybe here, and then I'm done. And I have a lot more empathy for people with long hair, especially women with long hair, because I didn't realize how annoying it is, especially in the summer. But so the block time it was just kind of picked because it's a very safe option and it's a very stable option. It is something that we can bring down longer term though.
Right on. All right, so I was just catching up on the live stream here, and I'm about halfway caught up to real time. This is awesome to see all the questions and engagement. See some good questions trickling in on the live chat too. We'll get to those in just a moment. Have a cool question here from Fudo. Here we go. The work Randy and Davey are doing on the learning platform is A+. Davey stated a goal of onboarding 10,000 developers to Kadena in the next 12 months. How ready is Chainweb for that much increase in traffic?
I think it's pretty good. If we were to go from 0 to 10,000 developers tomorrow, and a major killer app came out of absolutely nowhere, and then the network started to get down, we'd have some period of stop growing. Sorry. We'd have some period of there being increased latency because we hadn't expanded the number of chains in the system. But overall, I think that the system is pretty robust. We've gone through a number of different surges in uptick of both developers and of users at different times, and those have shown some weaknesses that we had in the older version of the code base. We have a much bigger development team now, and we're doing a lot more stress testing than we were 2 years ago, just because we have more capacity to do it. So I think we're in a pretty good place for it. But also, the main thing is Randy and Davey's work, and just really the whole user experience team has been doing tremendous work when it comes to having the resources needed for people to actually onboard and use the technology, and increasing the UX, and making the JavaScript libraries a lot better, blah blah blah. So like that matters a lot. I almost think that matters more than just the raw tech aspect of can we handle the traffic? Because it's one thing to be able to handle the traffic, but if you don't have like the good tech, if you don't have good resources for people to be able to use it, and you haven't kind of smoothed over some of the rough patches that we definitely had earlier on, then it's much harder to actually keep those people and keep those in the community after.
Yeah. And I think I'm so happy you mentioned community, as there's a key role that I think community plays here too, which in developers, right? Which is that if everyone deploys on chain 0, then it's as if you have one chain on the network. In order to really harness the power of Chainweb, there has to be some load balancing across the 20 chains that are in existence. And so presumably that would be something that would naturally happen, right? So if suddenly 5,000 new applications deployed on chain 0, well, guess what? Chain 0 is going to have some congestion, and gas prices would go up on chain 0, and transaction times would go up on chain 0. But that would probably be a kick in the ass for developers to say, hey, we got to move off chain 0, or move to chain 1 or 5 or 10, or deploy across 3 chains or 5 chains. So I think another thing that's interesting here is that, if everyone comes on and immediately starts building on the same chain and deploys, then, Kadena is not immune to congestion or some growing pains. But it long-term has this scaling capacity that's unparalleled.
Yeah, we actually have a real story for, we have, 100x increase in traffic, in the next 6 months. What do we do? And then when you get another 100x increase in traffic, what do you do? It's a very straightforward story of we increase the number of chains. And because the gas prices can vary based on chain, then there's a natural back pressure for developers to be deploying across the different chains in the network. So, this is like one of the key features of Kadena is we have an actual story for and proven track record of, how do we actually scale up the system in production?
Yep. Right on. Have a question from Miroslav here. Is there a hackathon planned?
Yes, there is. I didn't know this until I checked right before. Let me open up Slack and I'll put the link into the private chat because I'm not there. But yeah, it's on August 3rd. It's a View School something.
Oh, sweet. That's news to me too. That's awesome.
Yes. I don't know if I'm supposed to be the one who's announcing it to the community, but whatever, we're doing it because I got asked and I was excited to hear about this, that we're finally having a hackathon.
There we go. Here's some hackathon alpha for you.
Yeah, here, I'll throw this in the private chat and Tyler can put it onto the main.
Oh, check that out. Oh, at Vue.js Forge. Hell yeah.
Yeah, all right. August 2nd and 3rd. I asked Randy right before this campfire.
Hell yeah. All right. There you have it, folks. So if you're getting the jump on it, check out that link and come join us for a hackathon. Should be a good time. I'm going to jump now to some of the live questions, and I have horrendously fallen behind some of the comments here. So we will, yeah, some good support here in the chat. People tuning in from Twitch, I see. Yeah, wow. Some people leaving some snacks, I guess. I don't know. All right, amazing. So let's see here. I saw we'll try and do some sort of reasonably fair chronological order. But I see a question from Loyal Excel. What are the mechanisms that will help KDA better deal with future demand? For instance, Chainlink essentially have a monopoly. The price action is not that great considering that. So, of course, we can't talk about price action here. But the first question is an interesting one for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the price stuff, you can always talk about macro. Macro is just, the economy is what it is right now. And, we're going through, these happen every time to time, and we'll come out the other side of this, and then I'm very bullish on the market overall, and also just on the general economy this decade. So I'm not really worried about that. But as for being able to deal with future demand, I mean, the biggest thing is just being able to actually scale up. That's one of just the core things, and it's why we took so long building the root of the platform in a way that we know how to horizontally scale up as demand increases. But I think the other one, it goes back to what Randy and Davey have been working on, just having tools for developers to be able to both learn about how to use the system and to then be able to learn about it, but also be able to use it without tearing that hair out. We have a much better JavaScript library now. Like the developer tooling is much better than it was, especially the very first version I wrote way back in the day that was terrible. Now we actually have real professionals and a whole team dedicated to like fixing that experience, and they have more or less done that. I think docs are always an ongoing process, but I think one of the other ones which you were talking about before, Tyler, was formal verification. I think is going to play a big role. We'll get to that later with a different question of like why this stuff can be important sometimes. But as demand increases and as usage increases, having the ability to formally verify contracts to find bugs is going to be of utmost importance. So we're just not going to see like large scale industrial like adoption of crypto until we have a way to actually feel safe about these contracts that are deployed and are holding millions and billions of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that a crazy thought that there are today contracts that hold hundreds of millions of dollars that have never been formally verified? That, I mean, if I'm going to, I don't know, put $100 million into a bank, I might check over and over and over again in every way that's possible that the safe mechanism works. But in software, it turns out that that's pretty hard, right? There's not like a physical limit on this surface. There's all these ways that code can interact. And what's amazing is that the academic world has figured out ways that you can exhaustively check that your safe works. And yet there's only very few blockchain platforms. Of course, Kadena is a notable one that have formal verification baked in. And I think it's one of these things that it's been a ticking time bomb where we've seen the hacks, we've seen projects get wrecked, and formal verification is the answer to a lot of these problems. I'm just going to throw in a question here. Why do you think that formal verification hasn't been more widely adopted as of yet? And do you think that's going to change in the future?
I think it's about language design. A lot of language design especially it's a really good question. A lot of language design has tended to skew more towards things that were already known. So things like, especially like Solidity looking like JavaScript is a very good example. And things that look like, and also, this belief that, okay, you need a Turing complete system it's easy to express, any use case that you can think of. Whereas on blockchains, like, we went a different route, and a lot of people don't go this route when they're designing new languages, which is we went for the domain-specific language approach, which is we have this domain, it can only do these things. You're never going to run, a search algorithms. You're never going to run like PageRank on a blockchain. It just doesn't make any sense to. You run it somewhere else and you have the results come onto the chain. Like there are big algorithms that you just wouldn't run on a blockchain because there's just really no reason to have that be globally replicated. And by realizing blockchains are for this and they are not for completely replicating Uber in production just on some sort of distributed ledger technology, but instead it's more focused on the settlement aspect, then because we focus on what it was for, that then allowed us to have a language that was small enough that you could actually do formal verification for it. And a lot of people don't like this idea of having a language that you'd have a very hard time writing a like a video game like rendering system in the language, except that it's a blockchain. Why do I need to be able to write a graphics driver? Like I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be rendering like polygons on a blockchain. That should be happening somewhere else.
Right.
So it's a lot about that, I think. Just people they tend to just kind of repeat the things that they've seen before when you're in the early stage of designing, because it's faster and it's easier. And also you don't have to answer a lot of questions about, okay, why did you do this? Why did you decide to make it look like this versus that? Why does it look like a list versus like a JavaScript? But at the end of the day, it actually does, if you direct it and you kind of cut down the surface area of what the language is doing small enough, then, so long as you can, satisfy all the needs you have on.
Right. So sometimes a smaller toolkit is an easier toolkit. And I think that's one of the key pieces, right? That sometimes constraints, if you have a smaller number of tools in the shed and each of those tools is immaculate and works perfectly, then it's easier to build something that's going to work than if you have 10,000 tools in the shed and 100 of them you've never used before. They might fall apart. I'm going to jump to a different sort of line of questions here. Is it possible on Kadena to mint an NFT on the smallest unit of KDA, like or better than the original Satoshi on Bitcoin? Is there a reason to do that versus a normal NFT?
I don't understand the question.
So maybe I can take a stab at this. So I think they're referring to this sort of new wave of NFTs on Bitcoin, where basically people are using a single Satoshi to represent an NFT. And of course, on Kadena, we have Marmalade. So there isn't really a reason to do this. I mean, you could do it if you wanted to. I think the analogy and the parallel between Bitcoin and Kadena is powerful, right? And anytime you see an idea working on one blockchain, it's much more likely that would work on a second blockchain as well. And so I think it's probably a reasonable thing to do. But of course, you'd miss out on all the great power of Marmalade V2. There's probably a way to associate a Marmalade V2 contract with, a single.
You're basically asking if you can do a colored coin, and I guess you could, but it functioned very similar to just doing an NFT. Because with this approach, if I'm understanding it correctly, you're taking a single Satoshi, you're coloring it effectively so that it's not fungible with other things.
Yep.
And then you're wrapping up like, okay, if I'm transferring this, then I can only transfer it, in this way. I can't just like use it as a payment. And then it's just an identifier. And yeah, I mean, I guess you could do that, but it looked a hell of a lot like just minting a normal NFT through Marmalade.
Yep. Right on. Hey, Quinn, I saw you ask the question. I actually don't see it. Sorry, I might have missed it, but feel free to ask again. I'll try and get to it. Let's see here. See a question from Rob Morrison. Will, what can you tell us about layer 2 on Kadena? And can you explain the integration or impact of a different native token for the L2?
That's a bigger question, especially the second part. I have a lot of thoughts on this. I know that we're working with different like layer 2 so there's layer 2 from the bridging and stablecoin point of view, which I think is a follow-up question that we're going to have. But this one, I guess, is just a layer 2 for Kadena itself. And, tell us about it. I mean, so one of the things that we realized with when we were working on layer 2 earlier in the year is that we have the layer 2s are having this issue of just scaling horizontally. Like, if you're taking basically the EVM and you're putting it onto a layer 2, then the EVM still has scaling problems. So, okay, how do you actually scale up like Arboretum or something? And what we realized with actually the development mode that we used for development of the actual chain web source, we have this thing called fast mining, where it just instead of actually doing proof of work, it does effectively proof of authority, where it says, okay, like these are the servers that are known, and I'm going to very quickly mine a bunch of blocks, and that's an easy way to very quickly test things. And that is that system that we've been using for years is a very good basis to build an actual just layer 2, where you're just doing a proof of authority layer 2, which can then be turned into probably proof of stake layer 2, and it would already be very, very compatible with the existing layer 1. So, what we view the technology we use now for cross chain, where we're doing, SPV, it'd be very similar. There'd just be a small orc involved to make sure that the proofs coming from the layer 2 are reflected on the layer 1. The thing that I'm actually more interested in, which I'm not more interested in, but like we've had a lot of conversations about this over the years, is that contracts on Kadena on layer 1 actually make for a great place for setting up the staking and the rules and the validation for a layer 2 system. So, sorry, I keep looking at keep getting distracted by the various comments at the bottom. But yeah, so like you can actually like have, let's say, the various entities that are staking for the layer 2, you can have them lock up their funds on the layer 1, and then if there's any arbitration that needs to go on, if there's any action or anything, you can pull the information down from the layer 2 down into the layer 1, and then have the layer 1 actually enforce the slash and burn that is required for proper staked layer 2. So I suspect that things will eventually go in that direction, although at first I suspect that it'll probably be the proof of authority. And then as for integration, if it has its own native token, that's a business question. And I know that we're going to have we'll have our own layer 2 kind of like demoable thing, a kind of a proof of concept that people can take and use, but we won't be actually running the layer 2 when it comes out. This is much better run as a separate organization, and I know that people are working on that quite rapidly. But it's not my place to unveil all of that. So that one will have to wait.
I'll also just highlight, I'm still trying to catch up with the chat here. As of 10 minutes ago, we had 255 people watching live. We're up to 441. So awesome to see the reach here. For those that are just tuning in, we have Will Martino with us. Will is a co-founder of Kadena, an expert in all things blockchain. And so we have some great questions here that we'll try to get to. And if you have any in the chat, please feel free to drop your questions on YouTube, Twitter, Discord, LinkedIn. We're not on Threads yet, but maybe we'll be soon, wherever you may be tuning in from, and we'll get to as many as we can. I saw a great question here from Monterey Bay Webmaster. That's an amazing name. Monterey Bay is beautiful. Concerning Will's SEC experience, do you personally feel the US is behind the curve with crypto regulation? And if so, what are you personally hoping to see be a big pivot step by them?
I mean, I generally speaking don't comment on the SEC stuff. I can, at a higher level, just say it's like, I'm curious to see how the various cases that are currently in the courts play out. There's been a number of, the various briefs, especially the Coinbase one, had a lot of stuff in it that seemed to be very telling. People need to remember that the way that regulations work in the US often is through case law, and it's not through actual regulations that are established by either Congress or by the SEC directly. And instead, it's through enforcement actions because, it's like when you're a regulator, it can be very hard to understand a up and coming technology. And it's easier to be more reactive than proactive and actually just go after individual cases and then in court prove certain things. And then from there, build up kind of a body of, of things that have been reviewed by a judge and have been like argued about in court that kind of describe the regulatory landscape. I hope for more on it. I'd love for the U.S. Congress to get involved and actually, put down some stuff, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that. I do like your, I think it's the MICA regulations that just came out. Those are very good. Actually, I can't comment on a bunch of stuff, but I actually like those a lot. Those look very similar to what I would do were I just czar and could go and make crypto regulations. So I haven't read them in totally detail, so maybe there's some gotchas that I don't know about, but the broad strokes of it, of how you actually like build and launch a project, I like how they have set up big chunks of that. I'd probably be a little bit more conservative on it and have some more restrictions on the team for, not selling tokens during certain periods of time. But outside of that, the Europeans, I think, have done probably a better job. But hopefully with some clarity from the various cases, we'll get more into, okay, what is the regulation going to finally look like when it happens?
Right on. See, a great question from Joe Vescovi. Love open-ended questions. Where do you see Kadena in 2028?
So it's 5 years from now?
5 years, which is, I believe, about, I think that's approximately 40 years in crypto years, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's at least, two winters away. So.
Yeah, I think crypto years are definitely faster than dog years, but it's about the same ballpark.
Something like that. Yeah. And where do I see it? What I would love is to see actual industrial adoption of us having real use cases from larger, between here and the next 3 years, having smaller companies, probably European companies, doing some real proof of concepts that are meaningful or more meaningful than just putting an NFT on a sneaker. And on top of the system that we built, and then by 2028, looking at the first kind of larger scale ones. I'd also like Pact to be formally verified. I actually love to see Pact and the formal verification ecosystem get much more tightly bound. We've had some internal discussions about how Pact actually could be a very good language for intermediate language for doing formal verification and for being able to, not formal verification, for zero knowledge. It could actually be a very good zero knowledge language, so you could actually have code that you write or that someone else has written get deployed to something like your phone and then run through the zero knowledge system. But all of that is still much more in the research phase. Outside of that, more of a global presence. We don't have much of an Asian presence at the moment. We're mostly focused on Europe and the US. I think that by 2028 we would have at least a office in Singapore that's operating. And I'd be hoping that we're on our 3rd year at least of Kadena conferences, if not 4th or 5th year. So I don't think we're going to get one in before the end of this year, but I could be wrong because that'd be really nice if we did. But being able to have proper conferences that are related to other conferences, so it's like the first 2 days ahead of a much bigger conference, and it's just like the Kadena conference is something that I would love to see very soon,
Yep.
and having it be like the 4th or 5th year of that by 2020 would be amazing.
Right on. Love it. Different tact here from Neil Whippy. What are Will's thoughts on the argument that gas should cost something, like a few cents rather than fractions, to create a genuine market fee economy that can benefit the miners more?
So gas should cost something, but from my point of view, it's about spam prevention. Like it should cost enough that spamming on a large scale is expensive or is too expensive, or so that people just can't just go and do a bunch of nonsense on the system and just clog up the platform for no reason. But after that, for miners, that varies. Like we have a different token economic schedule to address this, where high gas fees are a detriment to the community, but you also need miners to validate and secure the network. So in the solution that we took is to just have a very long mining reward phase of over 120 years. And because of that, that should always be the majority of the miner's reward, which from a miner's point of view is also quite nice because then it's much more predictable. I'm going to be able to, with X, hash rate and X investment, I'll be able to get Y number of coins, which I believe will have the average, annual value of Z, and thus, here's the return for securing the network. And because of that, because we have a larger mining reward that not really larger, but just it goes on for a lot longer, we don't really have to worry about this transition to just fees. Because I am still worried about, Bitcoin will always be Bitcoin, but I am worried about this notion of, the fees have to be expensive just for people to operate it, especially when it comes to the proof of stake systems. Because the VCs are going to want their rent extraction real soon. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see more and more proof of stake networks increasing their fees because the VCs are like, all right, well, it's time to get more out of this.
I see on a completely unrelated note, I see Trillion Capital Toronto Corporation, TCTC, has posted a fun community update. Crankk consensus nodes just launched, sold out in 30 seconds at Kadena. Crankk will be the biggest project on Kadena for time to come. Going to be an amazing catalyst for Kadena as a whole. For those that haven't heard of Crankk, I'll share their screen on their website very briefly, but this is pretty darn cool. So Crankk is a Internet of Things proof of network participation protocol, similar to Helium, that's built on Kadena and has all the scaling benefits that the Kadena network brings. Of course, right now, I think it's running chain 0, but multi-chain we hope will be in the future. Crankk has actually been absolutely killing it. They now have 2,900 wireless LoRaWAN networks and miners online. And they have this pretty sweet map. Where did that go? Join Crankk. They have I saw this on the website earlier, but they have some proof. The actual coverage map itself is pretty freaking sweet. Oh, there it is, the Explorer. Yeah, check this out. It's not loading on the screen too well, is it? Well, you'll have to check it out yourself. But I just saw this the other day, and they freaking have thousands of miners across hundreds of countries. Pretty wild. So figured we just give Crankk a quick shout out there. Thanks, Trillion Capital, for giving that little community update. Pretty cool. All right, jumping back.
There was a great question about gas stations in case we can jump to it.
Yeah, absolutely. From Cloud.
Someone is asking if gas stations help with, if gas stations allow for spamming. And the answer is, in the current version that we have, maybe a little bit, but long-term, no. It's just that ours are much more open so that people can develop against them quickly. But longer term, you can limit, the fee and the payment out per what the gas station will give out. But also you can limit it to certain domains. You can have a gas station that's just for, let's say, Marmalade, or you can have a gas station that's just for Crankk, or you can have a gas station that's for Crankk interacting with Marmalade or Crankk, but nothing else. So you can actually limit them much more. So should that become a problem, then yes, the gas station, if someone starts using it like that, we'll go into the gas station and we'll just be like, all right, well, we'll turn this knob, and now the gas station will not, allow people to use it for, dumb things. So, but it's a really good question of if you have these, doesn't that allow people to spam? It's Maybe for like a little bit of time, but not really long term. What we're talking about here is much more longer term of, okay, how does this thing evolve over like the next 10 years? And gas stations are just crucial for user adoption long term, because then you don't have to have a wallet to use the platform. You can just like, download the app, and instead of having to have coins to be able to interact and pay the gas, you guys use the gas station that the project has provided for its contracts to be able to actually go and interact with the app. And then later on, you can go and decide, okay, I want a wallet so that I can actually, invest into this ecosystem.
Right on, right on. See some really great questions coming in the chat here. Trying to get to as many as possible. Have a bit of a recency bias now that the chat is blown up. So please feel free to re-ask questions if I have missed one up above. From Victor Matthew, when can we expect big companies, the likes of Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, to start using Kadena/partnerships?
I mean, I don't know where NVIDIA is based, but Apple and Microsoft are in the US, so I don't think they'll be touching crypto in a significant way for at least a couple of years. NVIDIA, I mean, we already got Bitmain making us miners, and we're not really GPU friendly. We're at ASIC, so I don't really see them touching it anytime soon. We do have some stuff with secure enclaves and signing of transactions, some previous work that we've done a few years ago that I really would like to see actually hit production, for just being able to just use trusted enclaves to actually sign Kadena transactions, so that you don't even need a hardware wallet, or you have a hardware wallet because you have if you have a smartphone that's reasonably new, you have a trusted enclave, and allowing that to just be your hardware wallet would be amazing. So, when will we start leveraging their technology? Way sooner than I think they'll start leveraging us with partnerships. So I'd say at least like 2 years, probably, especially with what the SEC has been doing.
Yeah, but I think, the promise of using biometrics to protect your private keys and using the secure chip, the secure enclave on the iPhone or Android phones to be a part of your multi-sig strategy, for example, with smart wallet integration, bringing this Web 2 user experience to Web 3. So keeping the power of decentralization, distribution, and putting keys back in your hands, not your keys, not your crypto. We love to say in the industry, and so many folks have been burned by FTX and other exchanges that seem like real vanguards. And over again, this painful lesson has been learned that if it's not your keys, it's not your crypto, and someone else's mistake can mean you lose money. And so, yeah, I think this promise of building a user experience where you can actually have safety and security and confidence that in managing your own private keys is going to be absolutely huge in terms of the industry, right? Like my mother right now, I wouldn't want to, give her a bunch of crypto and have her try to manage it and be your own custodian. But that's something that's rapidly changing, with the likes of Koala Wallet on Kadena and smart wallets in general. I think we're going to see this really cool transformation. So we'll love that point about how there's more that we as a crypto community can do to partner with, Apple or the Googles of the world and use some of those technologies and try and find the best of both worlds from a user experience and practicality perspective. Going to jump to a question from JC, somewhat related. Can you give an example of what industrial company would be perfect for Kadena?
I'm always a fan of the logistics ones, international shipping, tracking, that sort of thing. There's a lot of crossover with NFTs. I also, frankly, I like the idea. We played with this idea internally, but never found like a good, kind of route into the industry. But there are companies that track how stocks are transferred. Like private equity is transferred in a company, especially when you're doing distribution, especially with startups, that type of thing. And that looks a lot like how an NFT looks. So you could actually have kind of like corporate rules baked into an NFT policy and just have the NFT be the individual shares. And there are entire companies that just are dedicated to like just tracking the ownership of this stuff and how distributions and how transfers work. I think it could actually bring some real liquidity to the private equity market. But the problem with that one is mostly that the people who already control it have put up some pretty big walls around the industry. And it's kind of the same thing with like healthcare would be another great one. It was one of our earliest POCs, was with Humana. And the problem is just healthcare has put up, the healthcare tech people have just put up these massive walls, especially when it comes to like HIPAA compliance, which I know makes sense, but like it's still like, the US could do so much better when it comes to healthcare, and especially when it comes to healthcare and data. And there is a place for blockchains in that. But the walls that have been put up are just, they're there intentionally. It's like, TurboTax in the US just paying, I don't even know how many hundreds of millions of dollars a year to lobby Congress to not to lobby Congress to make it hard for Americans to actually pay their taxes, so that they have to go to TurboTax.
Damn you, TurboTax.
It's so annoying. They literally go into Congress, they make it illegal for the IRS to just tell you what you owe. And if you don't agree with the IRS, then you can tell the IRS, oh, I think this is wrong. I think I owe this. Like every other country in the world. I live in Sweden now. They tell me what they think I owe. And then I'm like, yeah, that's what I owe. Because they just know. So it's extremely nice. And so, but the problem is that, there are corporate interests. There are very vested corporate interests. A lot of oligarchic markets in the US that have really good use cases for crypto and have really good use cases for Kadena, especially when it comes to but you just can't really access them. So I think a logistics company, maybe a DHL or maybe a Tetra Pak, something like that could make a hell of a lot of sense, especially for an early POC. And then longer term, it would make sense, especially as the layer 2 rolls out. So they could have some interaction with the primary chain, but not have to have everything be public. Blah blah blah. It's all the stuff that we kind of talked about before. But those are we do try to get into some of these areas, and then the issue that we run into is sometimes all right, this is intentionally broken, especially in the U.S. market, which is one of the reasons why we're in Europe a lot more now, because the European market is just less broken.
Yeah, well said. We have a spicy question coming up here from hereby. What would you respond to people saying the L1 war is over and the future is Ethereum plus layer 2?
That just sounds like the Ethereum people saying that the L1 war is over, the future is Ethereum. It's just that, Ethereum hasn't scaled and no one believes it's ever going to actually scale up. So now it's L2 because they need a solution for scaling. So no, frankly, just no, I don't think it's that. I think, if crypto is just going to be an alternative asset class with some toys on top, then maybe yes. So if this statement is true, then I think that the bound for how big crypto can actually gain adoption is quite limited. If something like Kadena really doesn't have a space in the future of the world, then there's just not a lot of space for crypto to grow. Yes, there'll be ups and downs in the market, but it's never going to go beyond being just an alternative asset class and being, this large scale utility, the public computation utility platform that it could be, that could be very transformative to the world. So I think the people who have that opinion are just, their lens is, it's just too focused. It's just too how am I going to, have my bag increase in the next 3 months? And then it's all right, well, it's just obviously it's Ethereum, but no, obviously it's Ethereum plus layer 2 because Ethereum has failed to actually scale.
Hey, DCF, thanks for a cool suggestion here for a logistics company, Pitt, Ohio. That's super cool. If you happen to know anyone there and want to make an introduction, we're always delighted to chat with folks and see how we can help them onboard Kadena and adopt. Kadena Mining Club, love to see you here in the chat. KMC, this is so cool. The last 25,000 transactions completed by the Kadena Mining Club community cost only 1.5 KDA. The layer 1 war has just begun.
Nice.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. So I see a ton of questions here. Where is wow, gotta prioritize here as we're getting towards end of our time here, but we still have some time left for a couple really good ones. Albert G with the long-term macro question, the 100-year horizon. Shouldn't the miner fee continue forever, as money can be lost in the system when keys are lost? Theoretically, in 1,000 years, all money is dried up. How do we counter deflation, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, so I got asked this question by VCs, why is it 120 years? Why isn't it 1,000 years? Or something along those lines. And my basic response is all right, if this is a problem that I have to address, then it means that Kadena is massively successful. It survived for over 100 years. So let's say we're going to try to figure this out 20 years ahead. So it survived for over 100 years. We've also figured out how to turn back aging, because apparently I'm still alive at 120. And the world is just a dramatically different place. And at that point, I don't really know how to think about the solution, given that the context of the world would be so radically different for this to be a thing. Shouldn't the miner fee continue forever, and as money can be lost in the system when keys are lost? If that becomes a problem, then we take it to the community and we probably have a mega DAO that just votes on this of changing, the actual emission schedule, and we ask the community about it. But overall, it's not something that I'm worried about because it's like the world is just so dramatically different, and Kadena is so wildly successful. Like if it's around 100 years from now, which I think it really could be, it's why we have a 120-year mining like reward. Then at that point, it may be that it's just so dramatically valuable because it is so long lived and it is just so widely adopted that maybe just the minute fees that you have to pay to use the platform are how it works. Or maybe we've gone completely to green energy and like energy costs don't really matter and it's just hardware costs. So we also have like, I don't know, optical chips that are doing all the mining. I don't know. It's like, it's so far away that I have a hard time even conceptualizing what, the alternative would be.
Yep. But Albert G, I love these questions because it shows this expansive thinking about not just how the world is today, but how the world can be and will be, and build for the future, skate where the puck is going, not where it is today. So that's a really, really fun and interesting question. From Hash2272, when can you see Kadena being completely chain agnostic for users/developers?
When I think it's packed version 5 or 6. I don't know which version it's going to be, but it's the one that's going to have the ability to compile a subset of Pact directly to WASM. It won't be completely chain agnostic because, Ethereum, well, I guess Ethereum has WASM on it, but you don't really run WASM directly. No, so it probably wouldn't work on direct EVM, but they're moving to zero knowledge anyway. So I can see like one of two paths where it's completely chain agnostic. One is that Pact becomes a zero knowledge language, so you're actually able to write contracts in Pact that compile directly to zero knowledge routines, and then it starts getting used all over the place. Another way is that we have the WASM compiler for the the subset of Pact that we're building out completed, and then people can actually just start using Pact for any chain that supports WASM, which is a lot of the chains at this point. So, one of those two things, I guess, in the next probably couple years, maybe, probably 2 years, maybe 3.
I love that Will took the most complex and challenging version of that question, which is when can Kadena be completely chain agnostic, Pact everywhere? There's another simpler version of that question, which is in Kadena's multi-chain world alone, when can these multiple chains be transparent, or rather not transparent, abstracted away for users and developers, and that's probably a less tall order, but it's so cool to hear.
I misinterpreted the question.
No, it's so cool to hear that even like the most bold version of that question has a good answer. So I love that you just took the hardest version of that question and gave it an answer, but might also prompt you for the easier version. What your thoughts are there?
I mean, I need to talk to Randy to see what the state of kind of like, I know that we had talked about, I don't know if we're actively working on it, but just kind of automatically routing, figuring out how to automatically route transactions for a given wallet through all the chains. So you don't even see multiple chains, you just see one, and then the wallet just figures out, okay, like this chain is clocked, this chain is less clocked, like I'll bridge the coins over here. And then based on that, I'll, then buy NFT X and swap it for thing Y. And it kind of figures out like the step-by-step transactions that need to happen. And from the user perspective, you don't even know about any of this stuff. I know that that's been talked about. I don't know if we've done it yet though. But it's definitely something that I think after we finish off doing like the full library revision and getting like the Pact school together and getting all the docs together and getting hackathons and probably conferences going, then that's probably next up for the UX team. So, yeah, I mean, that being said, like, it just really is going to take like one good hacker to go into the libraries and just be like, all right, this is just how it works. Because we have capabilities and we have the ability to forward capabilities between chains. So it's like, it's doable. It's just not the highest priority yet.
Great answer here from Kobe too of Eucalyptus. Yeah, we can do agnostic pretty easily from wallet side, but all about working with projects and chains for a proper consensus mechanism like we're discussing now. So thanks, Kobe, for that contribution to the conversation. Great question. All right, we got time for just maybe one or two more questions here. We're going a little extra time given all the fantastic engagement and questions and viewers here. But if anyone wants to get in a burning question, we got space for two more questions here. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll back through. Feel free to repost your question down below. So Victor Matthew looking for some alpha. we'll spring the trap. We'll see if Will bites. As investors, we'd love to hear about some big news in the horizon or big prospective partnerships. When can we expect such news to be announced?
We have a whole marketing team. We got like marketing advisors, and we're doing tons of work on a bunch of different things. Like, I am not going to be dropping alpha until the marketing team tells me in advance that I'm allowed to drop alpha during one of these.
Good try, man. Good try. Keep trying.
I will ask if we should have alpha that we randomly drop during these going forward. That's not the worst idea.
Yeah. Well, we kind of did. We dropped a little bit about the hackathon. And there's always some chats in the community, but yeah, I'll say that a shrewd investor sees alpha where another does not.
I like that.
Yeah. All right. Will you organize a campfire with Stuart Haber? That sounds freaking awesome. I'd love to host Stuart Haber, so maybe we can get on that. That'd be pretty cool.
I'll ask.
Yeah,
Stuart is very cool.
That'd be so cool. Thanks, Will. Alpha Swarm's finance launches today. Come build your own DAO on the Kadena blockchain. Holy crap, that's huge. That's so cool. I've been hearing about Alpha Swarms here. I think Squeegee is one of the devs there, if I'm not mistaken. Well-regarded dev in the community. Damn, we got to get a link out, but that's freaking badass. Congrats to Alpha Swarms for launching. That is so cool. Yeah, projects that are in the chat, this is a great time to share some words for all the people that are tuning in. So if you want to throw in some words here, please go ahead. I'll look at that. Swarms Finance Twitter status, definitely check that out. That's so cool. Thank you, John Benford, for that update. And Kadena Ecosystem, just to give a quick plug, is doing a Twitter space with them today at 3 p.m. Eastern. So that's in about what, 2 hours? No. Yeah, 2 hours, if I got my time zone conversion right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the bees are in the chat. Look at that. That's awesome. Yeah, Crypto Junkie. Appreciate you tuning in. Well, I think we're coming down to the last couple minutes here. So I'll just give a quick word, and then I'll give Will the last word here. But thank you all so much for tuning in. I think this has been our best attended campfire yet. We peaked at close to 600 viewers concurrent, and we've probably had over 1,000 over the course of the past hour. So everyone, thank you so much for coming in here. Core Kadena fam that has been here since day one, growing the chat, growing the ecosystem. We're here today because of you. And for everyone that's tuning in for the first time, this has been amazing to have you here. We hope you had fun, learned a thing or two about Kadena, maybe even got a chuckle or two. And we'd love to have you back here. We host these every single week on Wednesdays at the same time. So pretty easy to come find us. We have a rotating cast of characters. Will, of course, being one of the key conductors of the orchestra. We also have a variety of folks on the business side, on the technical side. We have people from the community. We have experts in crypto. We have all sorts of amazing topics that come up too, from large language models to quantum computing, from NFTs to fungible things, new projects, DeFi. It's a pretty vibrant conversation each week, even as we change the topic. So definitely come back and join us. Subscribe, throw that like in the chat. I'm now going to be a shameless YouTube shiller for the moment. But thank you all so much for your engagement, time, and attention and care. Will, I'm going to give you the last word.
No, I just wanted to say the same stuff. Like, thanks everyone for coming. It's awesome. I think we set the record for like the most viewed thing. So it's freaking fantastic. This has been tons of fun. Thanks for coming, everyone. See ya.